Hi, David. Welcome on the Looped In podcast, the retail re-engagement podcast where retailers share tips with each other on how to re-engage today's customer. Obviously, with your background today, I'm really excited to explore with you how physical retail fits into today's omnichannel landscape, from the state of the store in 2025 to the evolving role of pop-ups to how technologies weave in digital and physical together.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me, Ines. And delighted to join your podcast. It's a passionate subject for me. And I have been in the industry for 40 years here in the UK. Done a bit of travelling with it as well. So it's great to be with you.
So obviously you've been in the industry for 40 years. Do you mind sharing a little bit about the retailers that you've worked with, the type of projects you've led, and really the common thread of your career?
Well, I left school very young and I went to a department store group called House of Fraser and just got a little bit of my training there. I did 5 years just training, understanding all about retail. And then I had this little advert I saw in the paper and it said, "Do you like travelling and do you like retail?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, come and join us." And this was travel retail, or duty free as it was, to manage shops on board cruise ships.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And this was at the time that cruise ships were starting to explode as a business. And I was very fortunate. I worked with several cruise ship companies, and being a manager on board actually was my university of retail, because you had a captive audience. We had autonomy to do what we wanted to do. And we could be innovative. And I think I really cut my innovation through learning through cruise ships and having 2,000 people a week on these things, how to get the most money out of your customer and give them the greatest experience. I then decided I'd had enough and time to go and get a normal job, and came back to the UK, worked with a couple of people here, Arcadia Group, who are well known, who own Topshop and Topman, and started to get involved with concessions there and to run concessions. Then I got involved with a manufacturing company, starting concessions in stores. Did that for a couple of years. And the real big breakthrough then is House of Fraser approached me, who are the big department store group, 65 stores, 6 million square feet of space, and asked me to join them to manage the brands who were coming in our stores. So that was to manage 300 of the most famous brands you can imagine coming into our stores. Every single concession would have good days and bad weeks. And quite often we were very able to become quite innovative with the brand. Said, well, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? So not only with our own stores, but with the store within the shop. I did that, and then ended up starting to get involved with the design to build the stores and space management. Eventually, I became group store development director, looking after all the stores, new stores, existing, carried that on. And then I started on my own with Phygital retail, because I thought that was appropriate. Between physical and digital's ideal. And I started to work with Kurt Geiger, who are well known out in the States now, Gies and Hawkes, Radley, who are doing a lot in the States, and just helping lots of brands with managing their design and their build and fit out. And I did that for many years. And then I was lucky enough to get involved briefly for 3 years with a pop-up business, innovating pop-up, a company called Souk. They're really interesting, and that whole pop-up thing will come on to later. But it's not just pop-up, it is more short-term lease, and I'll go through that later in the conversation. I'm lucky enough now to just been given a really nice project. It's the oldest department store in Europe. It's 200 years old. It's called Jolly's of Bath.
But so what makes your tech? Like, why are you obsessed with the stores? Because I think we can call it an obsession at this point.
I'll tell you what made me tick. Fortunately, I love what I do. I think the big thing that made me tick was to be given the opportunity to just get on and do things myself, because you've got to be given freedom within framework in any business to become good at what you do and to be sometimes creative. And I was fortunate that all the chairmen and chief execs throughout my House of Fraser career just said, get on with it. I put to them what I want to do. They said, yeah, fine, you get on with it. And along the way, we did a few things which involved things like food and beverage and the restaurants and champagne bars. We did things a long time ago before they became everyone has to do it. And I helped lots of brands, and I get a bit of a kick about helping people. And I always believe, and others will say, actually at some point you get judged on the good you do, not always the page you do.
And so diving straight in, the state of retail today. Obviously, there's been a lot of headlines on the state of physical retail after COVID, and our industry is always very entertaining, isn't it? What is your read on the role and relevance of stores in today's retail landscape? What do you think is the truth and what do you think is the myth?
I think, first of all, ironically, COVID has played a major part in the rejuvenation of physical stores. And a number of the big retailers I've spoken to will say that very thing. I don't think, had COVID not happened and us getting deprived of something, would have allowed us to appreciate what we were missing. And I remember having conversations with people, well, we only buy online now, and it had this conversation, and we don't, and everyone talks that way. But actually, it's proved to go the other way. And it's actually now starting to be that Phygital or physical stores are a really key point. Because no one can trade unless you're omnichannel. Unless you do all channels, you ain't going to trade in the way you need to. Shops today are offering a bit more than they probably offered before, and a lot more conscious about the things they're doing. And it's a combination of the physical and the digital that brings it together. On the digital side, they're all looking at ways of how do they get into physical, whether it's on a short-term, long-term basis, on-off or collaborations or whatever they're going to do. You've got to have some sort of presence now. And I think that's the exciting part, that the whole thing has started to merge together.
Why do you think D2C brands are looking to have physical presence now? Why do you think this is a must?
I think for two reasons. The customer experience, and the customer is telling them that's what they've got to do. That's number one. Secondly, acquisition of customer today, online only, is hugely expensive. And if you look at all the online businesses in the UK today, the big companies, the share price has been decimated because of the costs, the delivery costs, the returns cost, the marketing costs, the acquisition cost, the warehousing costs, the technology. I'll give you an example. One of our biggest companies in the UK, Next. And I was given a statistic. I hope it's right, but the statistic I was given, out of all the people who buy online, 75% return it back into the stores, not send it back, which is telling you they want to go back in the store and change it. They don't want to faff around because it's a pain to go down to the post office or the courier or have it dropped off and put it in a parcel and send it back, because you then need to return. Then you want to exchange it for what you want, or you might want to try the next one on because that didn't fit you. So there's some big percentages to come of people who want to return to store. So you add things up like that and it tells you quite a lot.
And in terms of overall metrics, I think 72% of all retail sales still happen offline. Any interesting metrics from your perspective on the state of physical retail at a macro level?
Well, I think you'll find that food is only 9%. So that's quite interesting.
Wow, that is actually surprising,
Yeah,
because so many people would think that food is such a large component of those retail sales, and it's, of course, a very physical buy, but only 9%.
You'll find that health and beauty is quite low. That's about 15%. But then fashion's much, much higher. So, yes, it's interesting how it skews on fats. But a couple of other stats which are really interesting. If you take the physical journey and someone buys online, they say that 50% of the people who buy online have actually had some form of physical link. So they might have been in the store and looked at it. So you think about it both ways. If you're going to buy online and you've had the physical present, or you're going to buy it in the store, you've got the physical of looking at it on the phone and looking at it here and looking at it live. There have all these touch points of touching each other. And if they all touch each other, there's a huge overlap, really. So just because you buy it online or you buy it in store doesn't mean you've not been through all the various channels to get to that point.
Exactly.
That's
It's a
quite
very
important.
intertwined customer experience.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely more learnings that need to happen in terms of optimizing that customer experience to truly work on the attribution. To your point, a lot of retailers might not be aware that actually the attribution might be offline, even though the transaction happened online. There's definitely a lot of work to be done in that space.
huge amount of work.
And in terms of the customer expectations, so you mentioned that now customers expect to be able to be returning in store. They expect to be able to have really this buy online, pick up in store, buy online, return in store experience. This is very much logistics focused. Anything else in terms of how the customer expectation has shifted for the in-store experience over the recent years?
Funny enough, there's two sides to this whole story. The first side is this. When we talk digital in stores, everyone just thinks it's about digital contraptions and screens and this and that. But you start to walk through stores today in London, here on Oxford Street, and I walked into 4 stores, all well-known stores. Not one of them had a digital screen. What that tells me is what these people are doing is focusing on product, focusing on salespeople and educating people. They're not allowing a screen to do that job. They're saying, we've got great product. We'll make it look very attractive on our stores. It'll be nicely laid out in a comfortable environment, but we will sell to you. And I'll give you a couple of thoughts. We've got a very well-known company here called Me&M. And if you don't mind just picking into this experience in the store. Well, what Me&M do is they are that popular that the whole focus to them and all their sales are really done in the fitting room. And they have the most unbelievable fitting room experience I've ever seen. The way they fitted it out and the way they do it. So when you go into a store of theirs now, you go to where the fitting rooms are and most of the stock is not out, it's put away and you only get to see, so they can put a lot more merchandise out, a lot more SKUs out. Then when you know what you want, you tell the person in the fitting room, they get everything, they put it in a room and then they invite you into the fitting room and then you try it on and you have someone helping you in that. It's almost like a personal shopper in a fitting room. That's what they do. And they have an amazing area just outside. So if my wife is in there, she does what, then she comes out and shows me. It's beautifully done. It's got all these amazing mirrors, a sense of space. And they convert probably better than anyone. They are absolutely an incredible operation. And of course, the other thing is getting your lighting right in fitting rooms. And you can't get that at home, can't get this, and you can't get by buying online that the lighting will show you the colour of a dress properly. But good colour rendition in lighting means this is a red dress. And if you've got really good lighting in fitting rooms, you can really tell. They've got different buttons today that says this is for an afternoon cocktail dress and this is for that dress and this is for that one. Different times of the day and different lighting. You press different buttons. But it means you're buying it saying, oh yeah, I'm going to an evening do. So now I know what I look like in the evening as opposed to during the day. That's a big thing. These things now become important. It takes one bad customer experience, one bad salesperson to screw the whole process up. And then it's all a waste of time. The better the service today, better the repeat customer and the better the experience. And now that's what it is. So really important. Everyone forgets. Actually, the experience is about the staff.
Yeah, but I think also maybe people tend to underestimate the quality of sales associates today. Sales associates are incredible. They're creating an experience, they're creating a world, they're creating desire. And to your point, within the store, it is really about bringing that human connection between the brand and the customer. And who is the guardian of that human connection? It is the sales associate, right?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, I think it's obviously products is number one as well, and sales, and the two combined together, which it puts a lot of pressure getting your ranges right.
Understanding your customer helps you create the right products, right? And so would you say that the sales associates are also able to capture insights from the customers about what the customers are expecting? How are they liking the products? Are they disliking the products? What would they hope to see?
But I think that's probably where the gap is being able, as we have, to capture more of that. There's not enough insight in store. I think this is where technology can improve on that side. That you get into the store and you're going to shop and then the customer leaves if they haven't bought. But does anyone know if they haven't got to the customer or the sales associate where that gap is? Well, I've not bought because you haven't got my colour, you haven't put that. None of that is captured. So actually, there's not good data capturing in stores themselves where customers walk out. So that there are certain gaps there.
And earlier on, you mentioned that you're not seeing technology in a very visible manner in the stores, that it seems to be that screens are not in vogue anymore. It seems to be that technology is more hidden. What do you see then the role of technology in store being?
So there's a number of digitally enabled store experience here, which I think are really important. Live streaming. Now, live streaming in America is big. In China, it's big. It's not here. I don't know why. It's never caught on in the way it has overseas. I think live streaming is quite an amazing way because your influencer then becomes your live streamer. And if sales associates in a department store are selling electricals or whatever, what happens is you're the live streamer and you become the person who becomes the influencer. But that's your sales associate then becomes an influencer. And they, oh, I saw your live stream. You told me all about this Miele washing machine. Can you show me all about it? I'd like to buy it. And you go in and ask for Jane or Jack or whoever it is. So I think live streaming can be amazing in many ways. We're far behind here to you guys.
And so you think that the sales associates can become influencers for the brand, so it can be just another type of influence-led persona?
Yeah, we've got a company here called Wise. It's Wise London. It's a fashion brand. All their models are customers and they all do live streaming. Every time there's new range, the models go into the store for an hour or two and they try their favourite clothes on and they tell everyone online through the live stream what's their favourite dress. This is my dress. I'm going to get this. And they use their live customers. Their customers are their influencers because they're in there buying. So it's either the sales associate or the customers themselves have become the influencers. But in-store doing live streaming is a much more human way of doing it than someone just going on Instagram and go, I love this dress, I bought it. Because you don't know whether they've been paid to do that or not, do you? You just think they're all being paid. People don't like the fact that people might be paid for it. They want them to be genuine, that they actually like it. So genuine customers are much better influenced sometimes than paid. You've got to have some authenticity really as a brand.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's so interesting.
And there's other ways to do it as well. So obviously, click and collect. What a combination of physical and digital. But I think we're very poor in this country on click and collect.
It's a very interesting situation with this because customers expect it. Customers think it is the norm, but retailers find it very difficult to implement. Logistics-wise, it is a bit of a nightmare. Often it doesn't have lower costs than delivering to the home of the customer. So you then have to be evaluating what is the halo effect. Does it bring higher revenue because you've brought that customer to the store?
If they're clever, they'll always have a fitting room that you can try it on. So when you arrive at the store to collect, you've got a fitting room, you try it on. If you try it on, it doesn't fit, straight away, it goes back into the retailer's hands instead of waiting 4 weeks to return it or 3 weeks to return it. That is really important for returns. The amount of reduction in returns online by going to click and collect reduces the returns probably by 60 or 70%. Because they got that chance. And that's a really big thing.
The idea when there is a fitting room, to your point, you can re-engage that customer, bring him back into the fold. But the reality is that people are so behind on it. You mentioned an ideal scenario, which I completely agree. This is the ideal scenario from a customer standpoint. That's what I would expect. And then from a retailer standpoint, this is how I can create really a 360 loop with my customer. But you would be surprised how many retailers don't even have return in store when they do have click and collect. And so then what do you do as a customer? You've picked up the item and then you can't return it. That's crazy.
Yeah. Also, remember you got the add-on that if they come in the store to collect it, they might buy something else. You can do then linked sales. I think the problem is that then we're not creative enough with our click and collect. So if you take a department store, create an area that is like a personal shopping suite and you go there, you get pampered, you go, you collect something, you can sell from that area. You almost take them in to try things on. I just think it could be far more sophisticated. And I guarantee you, personal shopping, click and collect areas, all these that converge, will get bigger at some point because I realise that's how you're going to sell, through click and collect or through personal shopping.
I couldn't agree more. It should be really treated like a customer acquisition channel rather than a logistics.
Yes, exactly. It's an experience, isn't it? Not a logistics, yeah. And I think that's probably a very good way to describe it.
Do you think that people need to invest into tactics to actually promote in-store traffic?
Yeah, definitely. And they've got the ability to do it now through the social media and the way the different omnichannels go together. If you look at queues outside shops these days, there's a shop called Pop Marts, and they do these drops in store on a daily basis. And they have a queue every day. And anyone comes to Oxford Street, they'll see every morning at 10 o'clock a queue outside Pop Mart. And they've also got concession Selfridges. And again, there's queues there.
So when you mentioned about the macro landscape that D2C brands are looking to have a foot onto the physical landscape.
Yeah.
Pop-ups seem to be a very good solution to testing the waters, to not committing to a long-term cost center on your P&L. Do you think that this is the role of pop-ups? Do you think that pop-ups serve the same role as permanent stores, but in a less risky manner? Or do they actually today play a completely different role in the customer experience?
Completely different role today.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. With pop-ups, what they're doing is giving people the ability to sell a story. You can't always sell that story in store. So I'll give you a few examples. First of all, it gives you the opportunity, could we make physical work? So let's take a designer called Nadine Merabi. Nadine is really breaking all boundaries on women who want to look good and smart and go to the races and the events and whatever. Last week, Selena Gomez, the most followed woman in the world, it's her 33rd birthday, she wore Nadine Merabi. Lots of celebrities in this country wear her. So she decided to do a pop-up. And she realised when she did a pop-up, she could do well with the store. She opened the store 3 doors down, and she's doing so well. And by having that physical presence has completely transformed her business, because people can go, sit and do everything we talk about, yeah? And that only became because she tried a pop-up. So, as you say, it's test and trial. But what about this? On Valentine's Day, Lego do a market stall in Covent Garden. It's a pop-up, but what is it? It's all flowers, but Lego flowers. They're highlighting to people, we don't just do toys, we do flowers. So with Mother's Day or whenever, they do these pop-ups around different locations so people go in and can buy Lego flowers as a market stall. Well, that's just getting your message over. Again, storytelling. Take shoes. There's 12 shops on Oxford Street. You walk down Oxford Street, there's 12 shoe shops. Everyone's got the name of the shoe shop, whether it's your brand or whatever. However, take Crocs. In the summer for 1 month, just say you take up a pop-up in between all these other shops and highlight the fact that Crocs are in big style. Then what you're then doing is driving the customer, then becoming aware that Crocs, because then you say, and we're sold in that shop over there and we sold that shop. You're driving people back in the shops anyway, and the awareness then becomes Crocs. It becomes a marketing thing where you're getting the most amazing exposure just for your one brand. Crocs' name is not on any other store on Oxford Street, but when you do a pop-up for a month, you're out there and you're highlighting it. Take electrical. Air fryers are massive these days, but they're hidden in the store. You say, right, we're going to do air fryers for a month because everyone wants an air fryer today. So the only way really to highlight it, airports and in stores, is doing an area of a pop-up. You can make a big thing and have parties for it. And all these are the ways to do it. And you know what, for me, how many of your stores, they sell everything in fashion? They'll do shoes and they'll do dresses and they do makeup and they do this. And then you go, what if you do just dresses, or we do accessories and we do handbags and shoes, and we'll create a chain of handbags and shoe shops, which Monsoon did once. He said, we do clothing, then we'll start Monsoon accessories, because they could test and trial that format. So all these are ways to do amazing things.
It seems like it is really much more about creativity than how permanent physical locations are being approached.
I think with the physical experience also is when you create areas in stores and take a concept called what we call world of. If you have a whole floor, if you create something called a world of kids, in there you say a world of kids is truly, and mainly department stores actually, a world of kids includes everything. It includes areas to eat, includes areas to have your hair cut, includes areas to buy your shoes, it includes areas to go rock climbing or framing, or it includes areas for toys, it kids can have a tea party there. So next to the restaurant's a private area. You can hire that for a kid's tea party or whatever like that. Or you could do a world of leisure, which a whole floor, and then you put the trainers, and you maybe could put half of it as a gym or an exercise area, and then the clothing, and then you got little track that runs around like instead of a walkway, it becomes a track. Creating all of that, bringing everything together. Now, say with kids, those kids who are very young are the ones who drag their parents there because it's got an ice cream and it's got a sweet shop. You can get your frozen yogurt and get an ice cream all there. And I know people who said, well, we'd only go there because our kids keep saying, can we go there because it's great? And I had psychologists write reports on this, child psychologists, to prove that it's the kids who influence the parents to go to there.
It's about creating new opportunities to come to the store, to be in that space. Obviously, as a retailer, you need to have the space, but this also makes me think about all the different athleisure or sports retailers that, for example, have a Pilates studio in the store or have a yoga studio in the store. It's about creating more reasons to be there to drive that traffic. On the flip side, I know that you are a big proponent of bars being in the store. Obviously, that's not the reason for being there, but it is more about creating a nice environment, a sentiment of feeling welcomed, correct?
Yeah. So with, say, restaurants and champagne bars, about probably a long time ago, 15 years ago, we redid a store in Belfast. And I was saying to them, well, we have a champagne bar, it's hidden in the corner. It does all right, but what's the point? Champagne bars are for people to be seen and to see. That's why you see them at the airports. They're there right in the middle, people watching. On a Saturday afternoon, you're having a glass of champagne. So I had this huge window in a shopping mall on the first floor, which is on women's wear. And it was that big. I said, let's turn it to a champagne bar because it looks out onto the fashion floor and to outside, to the mall. And I was told 4 times no, and I said 4 times yes, we must do it. I got my own way in the end. When we opened it, the number one thing the press went mad for, and on the opening day, that's where they all turned up, was a champagne bar. It was unused space that we opened up. So every penny earned there was a bonus. And it was so popular, it only had 50 covers, it was packed all the time. And that's, We also had a very well-known guy called San Carlo. They do Italian. And again, you would say, why would you put a restaurant on a ground floor? But this restaurant did something where you could trade from 8 till 12, because we did a semi-split from the store at night, and then during the day, it was part of the store. We had an outside entrance, and we made it a place where people can go for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, have an amazing meal, because the food quality was great. And we had 2,000 square feet, about 80 covers. We made as much profit, and food is much lower in commission and profit, as MAC Cosmetics, the same profit density. We had 4,000 bums on seat, as they say, a week. So you're bringing people in.
Those customers, they probably picked up some makeup along the way, I would assume. And in your perspective, so for physical retail, what is the biggest untapped opportunity in the next 2-3 years?
For physical retail, the biggest opportunity, I think the way things are going is, one is community. So a lot of people are really tapping into the community side of it now. If you've got any heritage to your brand or to your store, make the most of that, because everyone loves this heritage. And when you talk to people now, the biggest thing helping retailers is getting back to their basics. And when you start engaging with the community now, it's becoming such a buzzword, but it's such a precious thing, and people really want that. And, I'm involved with there's a store, it's the oldest department I've mentioned to you, the oldest department store in Europe, 200 years old, and it's in Bath, it's called Jolly's. I was involved with Jolly's 10, 12 years ago, and someone's now bought it again, we're going to help. And everyone in Bath used to say, they don't want corporate, they want something with a heart. So we said, we will give you your store back. And we featured all the amazing features of that store. We went through the history and really almost made it a museum as much well as a store or a gallery or an emporium. And we told a story. And things like, it was in the middle of the fashion floor, there's an area which has got 3 different entrances. It's a beautiful area. And it was Queen Mary's fitting room in 1855. Brought that heritage back to people and told a story about that fitting room. And then all the local community come in. And now there's so much going on in Bath because it's the second most visited city outside London. When people go there, they don't want to go in a typical corporate store. Everyone's telling a story. And they love it.
You're telling us about what will be happening in the coming years and what people do well. What about missteps? What about what people do maybe not so well?
I think losing any form of authenticity is quite important. I think customer service will continue. If you keep cutting back on your staff, it's a problem. If you make the journey in store difficult, and I think that's where a lot of people are having to rethink how stores are laid out and how they look and how they feel. And I think it's really important that people do move their stores on. You're going to have to invest to move forward. You can't sit still. Yeah, they say, well, they haven't got any money to CapEx, but unfortunately, you're going to fall behind. And when you look at today, so many stores now, they're rethinking that journey and what they're doing. But also, I think back to the community, if people don't think about the customer, what they want and how to engage with them, they won't engage back with them. I think that's how you're going to lose them.
That was so insightful. Thank you so much, David. I think he gave us a lot to think about. It's really great to get the perspective of somebody who is really thinking about the real physical element within the store, thinking about the architecture, the layout, and how we're thinking about customers interacting with our business, with our brand, with our values. Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.